I know the listeners, and I know we actually have a lot of East Tennessee folks, so go out, support high school football on Friday nights. We have some Tennessee football to get into, Ryan, because since our last pod last Friday, Tennessee landed 2 big-time recruits. Not 1, not 2. We were going at it like you just want 1 or 2. Like, if you get 1 out of 2, then you're feeling pretty good. They end up getting Gibson, the Alabama kid, 4-star corner over Georgia. They also get 4-star corner out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and beat Texas for Jordan Matthews, who had, I think he revealed to Austin Volquest that like he had known for a while and was just going to sit and wait on it and do his own reveal. And it was Tennessee for a while. And he kind of kept going to Texas because he wanted to reaffirm that Tennessee felt different. That one visit and everything else that was like, okay, that's just not the same. And Tennessee's the spot for me. When you look at both of those impacts, were they both surprises for you? And who do you think is more likely to sign on December? Who do you think is, or do you think they both sign?
I think they both sign,
Okay.
for one. If I'd said which one would you be more concerned about for a flip, I'd probably say Gibson, just because Georgia's in on it. And, the Jordan Matthews one, now I wasn't surprised by Gibson. I was surprised by Jordan Matthews. And it kind of, not to say he couldn't, visit or go somewhere else, but the fact that Tennessee survived the multiple visits to Texas for him to kind of reaffirm, that feels really solid, and not to say that Gibson's doesn't, but anytime Georgia's pushing for a kid, I think you have a little bit of concern there. And look, I think as Gibson and Sham Umarov, to me, those two are so impactful just from it's not beating Tennessee, beating Georgia, beating Alabama, beating Ohio State, Clemson, any of these top recruiting teams. It's going to be a really big challenge. And I wouldn't say things were completely even with those two kids, because I think Tennessee was, for both those kids, Gibson and Sham, were in way longer, going after them hard than Georgia was in that full recruitment. But I do think that's a really good sign for Josh Heupel that Kirby Smart and that coaching staff can't come in 3 weeks to a month, which I think was kind of the case for both those kids, and put on the full court press and, overcome what Tennessee had been doing for 6 months in recruiting. I think that's a huge kind of first step towards Tennessee getting back to being able to compete with the best of the best in recruiting, is making sure these guys that you spent time on and they try to come in late, you land them. And I think that was huge. In Gibson's case, his last visit was to Georgia. Both those kids, their last visits weren't to Tennessee. And obviously Texas isn't on the field, doesn't have the pedigree that Georgia has in recent years, but that recruiting class they have right now is really, really good. So to me, those were both really impressive gets. And when you looked at Tennessee's defensive back, the commits they had in the 2023 class, they had a lot of safeties. You felt good there. You get Christian Conyer, the corner out of Kentucky. That was a long-time target. You felt good, but you needed a few more bodies at corner. And to get those two guys, I mean, I think Tennessee ended up landing probably 3 of their top 4, maybe 5 or 6. But really, to me, Shaquem Jackson's the other guy that stands out. Those seemed like for a long time were the 4 corners that Tennessee was really targeting. And for Tennessee to land 3 of them, I think that's huge.
Interesting. I'm also so when you look at the rest of this class, so it's very heavy defense, like a lot more defensive players in this class than offensive players. The one thing we're left to is like what? Defensive.